everyone, welcome back to Hands-Free Studying for the MBE, brought to you by Brainscape. These upcoming questions are related to contract law, third-party beneficiary concepts. Let's get started. Question 1. Define third-party beneficiary. A third-party beneficiary is a person who is not a party to the contract, but the contract still benefits. Question 2. What are the types of beneficiaries in both the first and second restatement? In the first restatement, there are 3 types of third-party beneficiaries. First, creditors. Second, donee. And third, incidental. In the second restatement, there are only 2. The first is incidental third-party beneficiaries, which includes creditors and donees, and then second, intended third-party beneficiaries. Question 3. Define creditor beneficiary. A creditor beneficiary is a third-party beneficiary of the contract. Here, the promisee seeks performance by the promisor to fulfill an obligation owed to the third-party creditor beneficiary. Question 4. Define donee beneficiary. A donee beneficiary is a third-party beneficiary to the contract. Here, the promisee seeks performance from the promisor in order to make a gift to the third-party donee beneficiary. Question 5. What is an incidental beneficiary? An incidental beneficiary is a third party who benefits from the performance of the contract, even though the benefit to them wasn't the party's primary intent in forming the contract. In other words, the benefit to them is incidental to the contract. Question 6. What are the incidental beneficiary's rights under the contract? An incidental beneficiary does not have any rights to seek enforcement of the contract. Question 7. What is an intended beneficiary? An intended beneficiary is someone for whom the contracting party intended to benefit with the contract. These beneficiaries can seek enforcement of the contract, unlike incidental beneficiaries. Question 8. When does an intended beneficiary have rights to seek enforcement of the contract? Against first, the promisor, and second, against the promisee. First, against the promisor, an intended beneficiary always has the right to seek enforcement of the contract because the promisor is under an obligation to the beneficiary. On the other hand, an intended beneficiary never has rights concerning the enforcement of promised performance under the new contract against the promisee. A third-party beneficiary will only have rights against the promisee if there was some type of prior obligation between the promisee and the third-party beneficiary. Question 9. When do the interests of an intended third-party beneficiary vest? There are 4 circumstances. First, if the beneficiary sues. Second, if the beneficiary justifiably changes her position of reliance on the contract and notifies the parties. Third, they can vest at the request of the parties if the beneficiary manifests assent to the contract. Or lastly, the interest can vest if the contract's express terms state that the rights have vested. Question 10. What is the consequence of an intended third-party beneficiary's rights vesting? Both parties are now bound to the contract and must gain consent of the beneficiary to modify or rescind the contract. And that's the end of your 10 flashcard study round. To reach full mastery, remember to study in Brainscape. Our mobile and web app uses the latest in spaced repetition techniques, allowing you to optimize your study time and track your progress down to the finest detail. Of course, when you're driving, cooking, exercising, or otherwise unable to navigate the app, be sure to keep listening to the rest of this hands-free studying playlist. No matter what subject you're learning and what method you're studying it, Brainscape helps you rise to your challenge.